Let's read a little Bible, shall we?
All right, this is out of 1 Kings 3, 16 on down. This is Solomon judges wisely. Sometime later, two prostitutes came to the king to have an argument settled. Please, my lord, one of them began. This woman and I live in the same house. I gave birth to a baby while she was with me in the house. 3 days later, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There were only two of us in the house. But her baby died during the night when she rolled over on it. Then she got up in the night and took my son from beside me while I was asleep. She laid her dead child in my arms and took mine to sleep beside her. And in the morning when I tried to nurse my son, he was dead. But when I looked more closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't my son at all. Then the other woman interrupted. It certainly was your son, and the living child is mine. No, the first woman said, the living child is mine and the dead one is yours. And so they argued back and forth before the king. Then the king said, let's get the facts straight. Both of you claim the living child is yours, and each says that the dead one belongs to the other. All right, bring me a sword. So a sword was brought to the king. Then he said, cut the living child in two, and give half to one woman and half to the other. Then the woman who was the real mother of the living child, and who loved him very much, cried out, oh no, my lord, give her the child, please do not kill him. But the other woman said, all right, he will be neither yours nor mine. Divide him between us. Then the king said, do not kill the child, but give him to the woman who wants him to live, for she is his mother. When all Israel heard the king's decision, the people were in awe of the king, for they saw the wisdom God had given him for rendering justice.
So there you have it. This story is about two women who claim a right over something, and one woman who has a legitimate right to it and has natural affection towards it, claims that it is hers. So in order to figure out which one it belongs to, the king says, okay, essentially neither of you can have it. And the one that had compassion on it cries out and says, I would rather it not be mine and see it live. So the king decides and discerns that child belongs to that woman. Doesn't this sound kind of similar to what Candace Owens is doing? Because she's looking at Turning Point USA, and she's saying, this was mine. I would burn this to the ground if this went to anybody else except for me. And then we find out that it goes to somebody else other than her. And now she wants to cut the living baby in half. She doesn't want it to belong to anybody. She wants to see it destroyed. She is burning it to the ground. So I don't know how much clearer this could be. You see somebody that is taking actions that are destroying the organization. Now, I don't buy any of the excuses, any of the subterfuge, any of the, just asking questions. They're obvious lies. Obvious lies. If you can't see that, I can't really help your IQ score. I can't understand it for you, to put it in Candace Owens' words. But a wise man once said, if you cannot figure out someone's motivations, look at the results of their actions and infer the motivation. Now, what Candace is doing is resulting in damage and attack and harm to Charlie's legacy, by proxy of all that, to Charlie Kirk. There's good, reasonable testimony that she was a disgruntled former employee. She was fired. She was given a soft landing at another company, but she hated Charlie Kirk. She eventually grew to despise what he stood for, what his organization stood for. She despised President Trump, who she used to support. She was understandably seen as somebody that would cause great damage to the company, so she was being handled with kid gloves so that she would not go off like a loose cannon. But you have all these other characters like Baron Coleman, a failed lawyer who didn't win any lawsuits in his career, and understandably had to switch careers from being a lawyer, which, you've got a law degree and you've got a law license in two different states. You're retired, which I can see why. But you're jumping on this train, which I have no clue whether... I don't even need any clues. I can tell by your actions that you do not believe what Charlie Kirk believed in. I just can. And you jumping on this is so clearly just an opportunity to have an income, to gain influence, to have power. Same with Candace. The really sick thing about Candace, though, is she would be willing to cut a baby in half for Turning Point, for spite, for bitterness, for resentment. She is burning the organization to the ground. And all these other influencers like Baron Coleman are standing around and throwing pallets on the fire and gasoline on the fire and cheering each other on like sycophants. And it's obvious to those of us that really believed in Charlie's message, that were really impacted by his assassination. And we're done with it. We can see that you're lying. We can see that you're not acting in good faith. You know, we don't even care what excuses you come up with. We're going to ridicule you and shame you into oblivion. And I pray to God that you get sued into oblivion too, all of you. I think part of Candace Owens' singular motivation and drive here is really, she would sacrifice anything to gain TPUSA for herself or to burn it to the ground. She would watch a video over and over again of Charlie getting, in the neck, but it could have well been her husband. She could have been watching that happen to. It could have been her children that she was cutting in half. It could have been Charlie's children being cut in half. She is willing to go to any length. And I think you can see that because she's backing down on nothing. She is not giving up any ground on any of her claims. Now, she, I think, has a real fear of being sued. So there is, ironically, some slight twinge of self-preservation. But it's funny to me that she's come this far, and we've seen her bluster and pose herself as, well, I welcome the lawsuits, then I get discovery and all this stuff. None of that's true. The lawsuit between Macron that's coming up right now, she's trying to get dismissed. She doesn't want discovery because she knows discovery goes both ways. She doesn't want any of that smoke. She really doesn't. She says she does because there's a certain number of people that are dumb enough to just watch her show and memorize her script and not look into anything else, not question themselves, not falsify their own position or Candace's position. They're just chiseling up the slop that she puts out every week, and also all of the slop that her proxies like Baron Coleman, Ian Carroll, Project Constitution, which that guy got absolutely destroyed by Jake Rattlesnake. That was hilarious. It just shows the level of, malice and actual indifference that these people have.